James Webb says that growing up in a military family during the Cold War instilled in him a sense of obligation to give back to society. And he did. From his decorated combat service in Vietnam to serving as Secretary of the Navy under President Reagan to his single term in the United States Senate. In between, he managed to write a few best-selling books, and now he's out with a new memoir, I Heard My Country Calling, and James Webb is here. Welcome.
Thank you.
So since retiring from the Senate, you've been quiet.
Single term is a long time.
That's 6 years.
6 years. That's a term and a half as a president.
Actually, it is. I thought about that because a lot of people don't stay in one job. So you said that writing this book, you've written all these bestsellers, writing this one was harder. How so?
Well, you know, first of all, I've spent 4 different periods of my adult life in public service, and I've always, after that, left and gone back and written and done journalism and other things. And I didn't want to write some tell-all book about the Senate. There's so many of those out there, and I write as a profession. So I thought I would go back into the early years. A lot of people understood what I have done in public service, but they don't really know, as my publishers advise, how I got there, what it was like growing up. And growing up in a military family with a tradition instilled in us and understanding what it was like to have a father deployed a lengthy period of times and a mother who was 24 years old with 4 kids and living in a town where she hardly knew anyone at that point when my dad was in Berlin airlift, gave me a special feeling of what it means to serve and also the sacrifices that are involved. And so this is a book to kind of tell what it looked like from the bottom up during the Cold War period, and then I myself went off into the Naval Academy and into Vietnam, and just on the one hand give a summary, but on the other thank the people who helped me and helped instill the attitudes. I
couldn't believe that you could recreate your childhood that way, how many places you lived, and how familiar you were and specific about the terrain and the houses. And then my favorite story was the boat to England. Your family moved to England and lived in England, which really was transformative for you because that was when you actually knew
very
you were
interesting time in life to be doing that.
But just the trip over there itself, I mean,
it was tough.
There was no communications. There was no
of all the books I've written, this is the hardest book I've written. One, because I wanted to be accurate about those things, and the other, I have a novelist's eye on something that was very personal, and so I wanted to make sure that I was being fair to everyone, and it was hard.
Had you taken notes your entire life?
No, actually people asked me that when I wrote Fields of Fire, the novel about Vietnam. They said you must have kept a journal every day you were there, but no, that's just the way my writer's part of my brain functions, I think.
You were outspoken against our going to the Iraq War when President Bush was in office. I'm sure you heard the president today. President Obama addressed the issue of, he was at West Point, and he was talking about being cautious in the future about using military force. Here's a little what he had to say.
The United States will use military force unilaterally if necessary when our core interests demand it. When our people are threatened, when our livelihoods are at stake, when the security of our allies is in danger.
Is that really any different from the Bush doctrine?
I think we need a clear articulation of what our national interests are, and that's what should drive the use of military force. I was, as you said, an outspoken critic. I was very concerned about the strategic flaws of going to war in Iraq. At the same time, which goes into the book that I wrote, my son dropped out of college, enlisted in the Marine Corps, fought in Ramadi as a Marine Lance Corporal during some of the worst fighting. And our family has always gone, separated the politics from the notion of service. But it's become a little too easy now to use military force with the volunteer system. I've often said the hardest thing that I've done in the military was to watch my son go off to war. And if 25% of the Congress had to wake up every morning and wonder if their loved one was alive, you'd probably see a little bit different foreign policy. We don't have that now. Also, we have the evolution of weapon systems like drones and those sorts of things that kind of make it, I think, a little too easy for a president to make that unilateral decision.
I was thinking today about your dad, reading how devoted he was to the military and how he might react today to what's going on with the Veterans Administration and you. What is your reaction to it?
Well, I've spent all my life around the military one way or another. I've spent all my adult life involved in veterans issues. I was the first Vietnam veteran to serve as a full committee counsel on the House Veterans Committee years ago. And I'm very proud of having introduced the GI Bill, the post 9/11 GI Bill. We wrote that actually before I was sworn in to the Senate. I wrote it with Legislative Council. So I've been involved in these issues. I'm enormously concerned, and I have been since I came to the Senate, about the backlogs. It was 600,000 backlog when I got there. It was a 900,000 backlog when I left. So to me, it's a leadership question. It's not a policy question, and not even so much a funding question at this point. It's putting leaders on the problem and getting these backlogs done and getting supervision and oversight over the VA.
Your name's being floated as a possible person to take over the VA. Would you, if offered, would you consider it?
I'm really not interested.
That's an honest answer.
But you know, I think we do need to get some aggressive problem solving over there.
All right, Jim Webb, I really, really enjoyed the book.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
so
Good to be with you.